About 5 years ago, the automotive industry experienced one of the biggest shakeups in history. And it wasn't the introduction of some newfangled technology from a major automaker. It was actually the Tesla Model S, because for the first time, there was an electric vehicle that got over 200 miles of range and was an aspirational product for most buyers. Now, 5 years on, there's finally a competitor that matches that 200-mile range, but it's not from a luxury manufacturer like you'd expect. It actually wears a gold bow tie. This is the 2017 Chevrolet Bolt EV, and it's here to shake up the electric car industry one more time. In terms of design, Chevy's kept the Bolt a pretty conventional hatchback in order to maximize city friendliness and usable interior space. In fact, the original Bolt concept was a crowdsourced design in which Chevy polled prospective EV buyers in what they would be looking for most in a usable everyday vehicle. As such, gas-powered cues remain, like the false grille inserts and the electric powertrain stuffed into the engine bay, rather than moving everything under the car like Tesla does. Overall, it's a stubby little thing, and taller than I'd normally deem acceptable, but when finished in a bright color like this orange burst metallic paint, it's a handsome little electric car. I especially like the blue accent badges and funky LED taillights, as well as the floating roof design on the D-pillar. Inside, the Bolt's actually a little more conventional than you'll see in some other eco-minded competitors. It's got the same steering wheel that you might find in the rest of the Chevy lineup, but there is a 10.2-inch new touchscreen that gives it a real tech-savvy look, and there's an 8-inch digital driver information display for everything that you need to see while driving. That tall hatchback design makes for plenty of headroom in the front, but the rear compartment suffers slightly as a result of the seats placed on top of a bump in the otherwise flat battery-lined floor. Forward visibility is excellent, and the relatively tiny powertrain packaging allows the windshield to extend further downwards and forwards than on a normal gas car. I'm a big fan of the two-tone dashboard trim, especially the detailing on the white plastic, and the gray seats are an interesting symmetrical design that's relatively comfortable, despite feeling a bit on the cheap side. I guess the engineers had to save some money for all those batteries somewhere, huh? An all-electric car would be nothing without some impressive technology, and luckily the Bolt EV boasts more than what goes into its impressive powertrain. The Bolt packs a familiar suite of GM tech, including available 4G LTE Wi-Fi, Bluetooth phone and audio, OnStar support, and smartphone projection technology like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Teen driver support and a handy rear seat reminder are also standard, and wireless phone charging capability can be had for an extra cost. In addition, Chevy gives you 3 different themes on the driver information display: Classic, Modern, and Enhanced, which allow you to see different pertinent data based on your driving style and personal preferences. There's even an exact remaining charge level bar that stays in place at all times, much like a gas gauge, so you never have to let range anxiety creep up on you. The central touchscreen has an energy data menu, which can display usage information since your last full charge, average consumption history over the last 50 miles, and even give you an energy usage score based on your driving style. There's a decent amount of cargo space, 16.9 cubic feet behind the rear seats and 56.6 cubic feet total to be exact, and the charging cable stores neatly out of the way under the rear compartment. Unlike many other EVs for sale today, the Bolt is actually an all-new design from the ground up, which means that Chevy's engineers were able to take the battery pack, put it on the floor, and build everything else on top of it. So you don't have to sacrifice any of that precious charging range. The electric motor array powers the front wheels only, and the Bolt makes about 200 horsepower and 266 pound-feet of torque, which are almost hot hatchback numbers. That's good for a 0 to 60 time of 6.5 seconds and plenty of instant pickup in and around the city. The battery array is a 60 kilowatt-hour pack and can power the Bolt for a maximum of 238 miles, which is yet unmatched by an EV costing less than $50,000. It takes a few days to fully charge the batteries with a standard household outlet, but a normal level 2 charger can add up to 25 miles of range back to the Bolt stash per hour of charging. If you're lucky enough to have a DC fast charging station nearby, or can afford to have Chevy install one in your home, you can expect to get 90 miles of range back in just 30 minutes of charging. And before you ask, no, you can't hook it up to a Tesla charging station, but blame that one on Tesla. The interesting thing about the Bolt's driving experience is just how normal it feels, and actually somewhat refined. Because this car has a lower center of gravity thanks to the battery pack on the floor, it actually handles pretty well in the corners. And with some thicker tires, it'd probably be a true rival to something like a Volkswagen GTI. Brisk acceleration from the battery pack helps as well, as this thing muscles along to 60 miles an hour in about 6.5 seconds, thanks to the 200 horsepower and 266 pound-feet of torque from the electric motors. And all that torque is available instantaneously too, just like you find in other electric cars. Of course, it's not all fun in here, as you do have to drive pretty eco-minded every once in a while. And luckily, Chevy's given you lots of options to do that. You can coast along normally in drive mode. There's also a paddle on the steering wheel here that you can use to slowly apply the regenerative braking when you're slowing down. Or you can pop the car down into low gear, which essentially allows you to drive with one pedal. So as you press on the gas harder, you speed up, and then when you let off, the regenerative braking is applied, feeding energy back into the battery and making sure that you have a longer range than when you started. But really, hands down, the most impressive feature the Bolt has to offer is the value. It starts at $37,495, which might seem at first like a hefty price to pay, but with the $7,500 federal tax credit you get from purchasing an electric vehicle, the final cost slots in at just under 30 grand. Plus, if you live in a state like New York, there are additional incentives available, such as an $1,100 instant rebate off the purchase price, HOV lane access for a single driver, reduced toll fees, and even a discount on your home energy bill if you plug the car in on your property. So, there's a lot to like about the Bolt EV as an everyday driver. It boasts an incredible driving range, it's pretty practical, very city-friendly, and it's somewhat affordable to boot. But there's one big issue that Chevrolet pretty much overlooked when it was designing this car. The major issue with the Bolt is, it's just not sexy at all, really. Tesla has skyrocketed to prominence because they built a car that people aspire to own, or even just to drive. And let's just say nobody apart from the hardest core eco-nerds are clamoring to get behind the wheel of a stubby little hatchback. Still, the Bolt EV is so good in every other way, it almost may not matter. That's why we named it our 2017 Plug-in Hybrid or Electric Vehicle of the Year, and why it's garnered numerous other accolades since its release. Well, that's all for now. I'm Brian with the Daily News Autos, and we'll see you next time.